Hey friends, before we begin this interview with Methods, I just want to say the president addressed the nation tonight. They're locking down all travel from Europe to the United States. So we're going to find out real quickly just how fragile our interconnected global economy is. So also just a quick word from this interview's sponsor, the solar water heater. With people getting trapped in their homes because of the pandemic, it just may be that your best friend could be the solar water heater. The solar water heater is amazing. It allows you to heat and boil water outdoors using simply sunlight. Depending on the conditions, the solar water heater can heat water in as little as 30 minutes, and it'll work anywhere the sun shines. You can use it to boil water, cook noodles and rice, or sterilize water for drinking. No gas, no propane, no flame, no smoke, nothing. All you need is sunshine. So that makes it practically an unlimited source of free energy. The solar water heater is the perfect tool in times of need. Limited supplies last, but you can save 15% off the new 2020 model before they sell out. Use coupon code SGT15. Take advantage now and give the perfect gift for the outdoorsman. Visit solarwaterheater.com. The link is below this interview. Okay, friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for pushing play. Sean from SGT Report here. I've got a special guest for you today. It's Methods. You can find him on Twitter at M2Madness. He's also a friend of Red Pill 78, and they do a show every Sunday called Comfy Sunday. So we're going to sit back and have a conversation about current events today. You guys know there's so much to talk about. Methods, how are you?
Doing good, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Hey, just a couple of things I want to talk to you about today. I want to get your thoughts on the coronavirus, and I'll read something to you. Somebody responded to one of your tweets with something I think is worthy of reading. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I also want to mention that today, trending on Twitter as we're having this conversation is Biden's cognitive decline. Boy, is that true. The guy is an absolute train wreck. But first, let's talk about what you think is going on with the coronavirus. And then I'll read this tweet that somebody responded to you with.
Well, this is one of those things that when I see way too many variables and I'll go down different rabbit holes of thought and there's just too much going on, I'm still kind of reserving judgment about it because, I mean, I've seen everything you've probably seen, white hat op, black hat op, all those different things going on. So it's to me, it's something I'm stepping back and watching, but it is very interesting to see what's happened since it started. I always look at, the effect and the effect of this changing. It's the narrative of the media. It's taken over at nauseum. The Democrats are pushing it, trying to blame Trump with it. It's affecting the market up and down. And that's been one of Trump's biggest accomplishments that he gets to talk about is how well the stock market's been. And so, of course, having this happen in an election year also makes things very curious. But as far as, the origins, who started it, what's the intent, what's going to play out of it, I'm just stepping back and just kind of enjoying the show.
One of the things that I've been bumping on a little bit is I'm seeing in the comments section on Twitter a lot of people saying, hey, you've lost control of the narrative. How come you're not following the plan? Trust POTUS. He's got this all under control. POTUS has a plan. And I think that's a little naive. And I follow Q, and I do believe that there is a movement by white hats to try to topple the deep state and hopefully jail some of these people. But, with that all said, let me read this from 417 on Twitter. And he was replying to something you had tweeted, and he said, the coronavirus is a cover-up for the largest U.S. military intelligence operation the world has ever known. The plan is to totally shut down the entire globe, make massive arrests, remove evil in governments, bankers, global elites, Hollywood and sports stars that are involved at Epstein Island and other islands. Also, many other massive scandals, remove the fiat currency and go to gold, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to me, Methods, and I want your thoughts on this, that is a big giant dose of hopium, because we don't know if any of that's true. And what I'm concerned about with this thing is its potential, or I would say quantifiable, ties to a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, meaning that it is real and it is dangerous. So I have a hard time believing how something like this could be released and it's a cover-up for a military operation by the white hats.
Yeah, I'm there with you to a degree. Absolutely, I would love for this to be the greatest op in history, and a big twist is going to come in the movie plot and all that stuff. But with it all happening the way it is, and at least I can wrap my head around white hats planning for something like this to be pulled by deep state people. Having a plan and action for it. But as far as this all being completely controlled narrative and everything's happening how it's supposed to a degree, it's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around that, just because this is pure evil that we're dealing with in this battle, and the idea that this narrative is out there just to specifically put everything in place. That's why I'm withholding judgment and not making bold statements that I see other people might be making. I respect their their belief system in it. I can kind of agree with some points that they make, but when you put them all together in a single box and look at it, I can't exactly buy that just yet, but we're in the middle of it.
Because the point I've been making repeatedly, and I've been making this point in personal messages to people who I like in the community, who are sort of on board with this idea that the whole thing is overblown, if not entirely a hoax. And what I've been concerned about, Methods, is that the danger to the economy is very real. And by the way, Apple is getting spanked, and it deserves to be spanked for building all of those factories in China, utilizing slave labor to build a $207 billion cash hoard when they ought to be building factories here and paying people a living wage. If they paid people a living wage, they wouldn't have a $207 billion cash hoard. Now, with that said, this is very real, and the enemies of humanity have a lot of firepower at their fingertips. People forget about what happened in 2009, and I want to play this soundbite for you. This is Representative Kanjorski talking about what happened during that 2009 run on the banks.
It was about September 15th. Here's the facts, and we don't even talk about these things. On Thursday at about 11 o'clock in the morning, the Federal Reserve noticed a tremendous drawdown of money market accounts in the United States to the tune of $550 billion was being drawn out in a matter of an hour or two. The Treasury opened up its window to help. They pumped $105 billion in the system and quickly realized that they could not stem the tide. We were having an electronic run on the banks. They decided to close the operation, close down the money accounts, and announce a guarantee of $250,000 per account so there wouldn't be further panic out there. And that's what actually happened. If they had not done that, their estimation was that by 2 o'clock that afternoon, $5.5 trillion would have been drawn out of the money market system of the United States, would have collapsed the entire economy of the United States, and within 24 hours, the world economy would have collapsed.
I'll pause it there. Could you hear that?
Yes, I could hear it, Sean.
I've played that before, and I just want to remind people that the enemies of humanity, the Rothschild bankers, the central bankers, the international bankers, this international global cartel of super wealthy people, they were responsible for that run on the banks. That wasn't moms and pops that were scared on a Wednesday in 2009 and went and tried to get their money out of Wells Fargo. That's not what it was. So I just want people to understand the enemies of humanity have a lot of firepower. And if they want to bring down this economy, if they want to bring down the banks, if they want to bring down Western civilization, they can do it if they're not jailed first. So I would like to see mass arrests of some of these Rothschild bankers.
Oh, absolutely. And to me, that's why I will lean towards the idea of what's happening now is this is a hit against, a Trump next term or everything that he's built in general, what we've built as the United States. It would make a lot of sense for them to know what we see the writings on the wall, and that's Trump is going to win in November. Of course, everybody vote, everybody, get everybody in your family, everybody to get out and vote. Let's make sure we take this all the way home. But they watch what Biden is saying publicly. They see, his mental decaying happening that you brought up earlier. And they obviously don't want Bernie to be that. And it's really coming down to them two, minus, some kind of like Trojan horse situation that I see people talking about with other people. To me, it would make a lot of sense for them to be like, okay, well, we need to plan for Trump to win in November, and he's going to be doing 4 more years of all this stuff. And there is talk of arrest and, holding people accountable. Trump Trump brings it up a lot. I mean, that's one of the things that people can kind of hang their hopes on about things being done, is that Trump keeps talking about it. And I can appreciate that. He wants people to, hang on with him. They're trying to see this through. So for them to try to cripple the economy now and break it, they wouldn't mind America, metaphorically or even, physically burning, to hurt Trump, hurt what's being built. Because this is past Trump. This is, patriotism. This is good versus evil in real time. And they've got to stop it somehow. And so having another situation like what happened over a decade ago makes a lot of sense for this time now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're kind of on the same page. I think it's more likely that what you just said is true, and this is a emergency play by the bad guys to try to hurt the global economy and hurt the president with the elections coming up in November. I like it that today, as we're speaking, trending on Twitter is Biden's cognitive decline. I want to play this clip. You shared it. I've shared it. We've all seen it, but let's just listen to it. I won't even show it. Let's just listen to how far gone this guy is. And then we'll talk about the fact that maybe our enemies are just one big paper tiger.
Because we cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. We can only reelect Donald Trump. Because we cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. We can only reelect Donald Trump.
It's just stunning. That's the best they have, man. Do you believe that? That's insane.
Well, I mean, a couple of thoughts of that. One, that's the best Trump campaign free ad he could ever have gotten, was having Biden say that. But also, I find it interesting, and I'm sure you came across it, when it happened, but within the last few weeks, Trump has actually, alluded to Biden having handlers and saying that they're further left than even Bernie's people and Bernie himself. So the fact that leads to what you were talking about, that he's just literally the face of what they're trying to do before. And we can make the argument that, Obama was the same way and everybody before that. But Biden's just, would be president by name only for him to get in, because they look at who have you seen recently what they're saying about who would be on his administration if you were to get elected?
No, but I have heard rumors that he might have Hillary run as his vice president.
Right. No, well, they've been putting it on different news channels that he's named people like Bloomberg, Sally Yates, bringing back Susan Rice. It's the same old story, and it's going to be a hard sell for them to do, because a lot of people were tired of what was being done before in Obama's 8 years, and that's what helped get Trump elected just in general. We didn't know that he would be this great of a president. We hoped the best, but it was just a difference than what we were used to, the old guard establishment stuff. So to have them put Biden out there, I've seen people to the point even on, quote unquote, our side, saying that they're kind of feeling not sorry for the guy, in the sense that they keep putting him through this when he he's retirement home, level when it comes to his actions. So for them to be doing that, that means they don't have anybody else to me. But if they were to, plug in somebody like a Hillary or a VP that would, run the show, that would make a lot of sense. But it does look like all the chips are on Biden right now.
Let me ask you this. I agree with you. Trump is a great president, and he's put the country first in many ways. He wants us to have sovereignty. He doesn't want us to sell ourselves out to the myth of climate change and the bureaucrats in Brussels. He's not moving us towards a one world government. He stands against Soros' talking points. He's the polar opposite of what we would have gotten from Hillary Clinton. Now, that all said, does it not concern you, and should it not concern all of us, that instead of eliminating the debt, he's going to add $8.3 trillion to the debt? Is that not a huge red flag and a problem?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of money, especially when his people were saying what, 2 to 3 billion in the beginning, and then the talking point came from the Democrats for more than that. But watching Trump say, if they're going to give me that much, I'm going to take it. I don't personally know what can be done with that money. Let's say if he doesn't spend it all. If it's not all spent in the situation, what could that mean? Could it be reallocated to the wall, because the wall would be protecting it from, the virus being brought in by immigration? I don't know what it all means. Of course, there's red flags on every situation because we need to be vigilant and not be, closed-minded about anybody. Of course, we trust this president, but he's also human, and he's got to make decisions in real time and on the fly. So yeah, man, it is concerning about that number. But once again, I want to step back and see how it's spent. And if there's something that we don't know yet that's behind the scenes on the reasoning of allowing that to happen.
All righty. Well, let's talk about the deep state and what you believe might happen between now and, say, midsummer, or certainly between now and the election. We've got Durham and Barr doing what I think is their level best to dot the I's and cross the T's and bring some hardcore criminals to justice. What is your view on the possibility of coming arrests of deep state players before the election?
Well, I look at all the things that are kind of happening in play right now. I mean, the big things to me are that we have Barr coming at the end of this month, and if we want to hold Q to his or her word about information is going to come out that needs to happen before he talks, that's interesting to me to have, what's going to happen in the next few weeks on that stuff, but with the stuff going on with Assange, and then, the Loretta Lynch Tarmac stuff kind of being brought back around in the news, makes me wonder if that's going to kind of be, a back door into getting some of this information out. Because if Durham and Barr are going back to the beginning on how this all started, then we could take it to, the DNC server hack. The whole Russian narrative got started there. And the fact that Assange is up for extradition, and I believe that they're holding the rest of the hearings on that in May, leads me to believe that there is going to be, how Barr said it, a watershed moment on that as well. Now, as far as arrests go, I mean, you've been in this, following Q and following this, everything going on for a while. Some of us thought things were going to happen way sooner. A lot of us did. So I've kind of just been able to just step back and not get my expectations high on things happening, at a certain time and a certain date or anything like that. Do I believe arrests are going to happen before the election? Yes, I really do believe that. Do I believe every single one of them are going to get arrested? Probably not. Hopefully it would be in Trump's second term to handle some of this stuff, because it is a massive corruption across it. Any arrest can literally affect other countries in such a way. And Trump's all about trying to make sure everything happens that keeps, the most people safe. So to me, I do believe that we are going to get, with Durham's quote unquote report, which I think the report's more going to be press conference hearings type stuff explaining why people are indicted. It leads me back to the 7 pictures that Q randomly posted around this time. I think it was a year ago, of the Brennans, the Clappers, the Comeys, and all that. I do believe that we're going to see that happen, because it's going to help explain why Durham is going to say what he's going to say. So yes, I do believe it's going to happen. But as far as, lights go out, U.S. shuts down, everything, and all of them get rounded up at once, I can't, sink my teeth in on that. But I do believe multiple people will get arrested, and there will be a time and place that we aren't talking about, coronavirus as much, and we're all eyes on that.
Yeah, one thing I would say about this idea of mass arrests and, lights go out and the white hats move and under the cloak of darkness, that's not necessary. All we are asking for as citizens of this country that demand justice for all and equal justice under the law, what we're asking for is the news to be shared. Yes, CNN, they'd have to share it too. But let's hear the news from Fox News. Let's hear the news from MSNBC. Hillary Clinton has been indicted today. John Podesta has been indicted today. John Brennan has been indicted today. Who else? James Clapper has been indicted today. Barry Soetoro has been indicted today. Those would be great headlines, and it doesn't require any cloak and dagger stuff. It just requires the law to be followed.
Well, I can agree with that. I think the cloak and dagger theory was if deep state wanted to do something, not to use it in a positive term, but like epic as far as an attack on U.S. soil, a full-blown something or other to where it needed to be counteracted and go ahead with the, the plan Z that everybody refers to. I do believe that there, whether it's a Q plan, Trump plan, whatever, that there was multiple routes that they would go, they had plans. Well, if they do this, then we're going to do that, and back and forth. But I believe that that's the option that they don't want to use. And I don't think it's going to become necessary. I agree with you, Sean, on that.
Now, I mentioned John Podesta. Let's see if I can tie this together, and then I want your thoughts. Corey Feldman has now pointed the finger publicly at Charlie Sheen for being the rapist of Corey Haim when Corey Haim was a child. And we know about this epidemic in Hollywood of pedophilia. We've heard names like Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg. We know what Weinstein has been up to, and Bryan Singer. This seems to be an epidemic in Hollywood. Here's the point. Whenever these things have come up regarding politicians, hashtag Pizzagate, we're told that we're tinfoil hat wearing nuts. Meanwhile, we've got all of these fishy emails that were leaked via WikiLeaks, via Seth Rich, is my belief, that show John Podesta was up to his eyeballs in some of this similar kind of stuff. Your thoughts on maybe the best reason to indict somebody like John Podesta?
With the current climate of things happening, like what you brought up with Weinstein, Epstein, the different things happening in Hollywood, all the accusations, even the Me Too movement that happened and kind of just went away. Podesta would make a lot of sense if they have the right evidence on him to have him be charged specifically with those kind of crimes, because it does kind of wet the whistle of the public to understand, okay, this does happen in the government and in politics. I think he would be a great choice for that to happen with, open the door on that conversation. But I mean, I'm sure that there's a litany of crimes that they could pick him apart on with his ties to Hillary alone. I would like to see that be the conversation as far as it being, crimes against humanity, crimes against children. Yeah, even if that's what happened, I would like to see that narrative happen because it needs to be talked about. Is that what they would get him on at first? I don't know. But I would like to see, that narrative become something, because we do know that those things have been going hand in hand in certain political circles. So I'm all about it being that case. But if they go the other route and just put him away for, the crimes, corruption in general, money laundering, whatever, Clinton Foundation stuff he was helping out with or anything like that, I'm good with that too.
Yeah, I'd be good with just about any reason for John Podesta's indictment. Same with Hillary Clinton, same with the rest of the bunch, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But one of the things that comes to mind, you'll remember he had that email that was released, the topic of which was wet works. And it was right around that time, just before Antonin Scalia was mysteriously killed. And we wonder if Scalia wasn't whacked. A lot of people believe he was murdered. And then we have a John Podesta email also saying he's all for making an example of the leaker. And the leaker, we believe, was Seth Rich. And then Seth Rich ended up dead. You just wonder, how deep into the blood did these people get?
Right. And if that can be, the doorway into Podesta getting indicted because of his involvement in some of these people, being taken out or any of that stuff, I'm all for it, because it all kind of comes back to certain things that were going on around those times of what they were trying to set up for Hillary because they didn't think she'd lose, or how they were trying to handle the stuff with the DNC hack with Seth Rich. Not even really a hack, just, taking information away. To have that whole thing exposed from the beginning and then explained forward, it helps explain the actions of what they did to try to set up Trump and basically somewhat hijack his first term, dealing with all these things all the way to the Mueller investigation and whatnot. So to have that come out as the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton being involved in assassinations or in also probably attempts and some things that we probably don't know about would be something that would shock the world and make them pay attention.
Yeah, because I think what's so troubling to you and to me and to everybody listening is the fact that this corrupt, whore, mockingbird mainstream media has run cover for these people since day one. And I don't say that lightly. I say it because people like Kim.com publicly offered to give his testimony to Robert Mueller that he knew and had information that would prove that Seth Rich was indeed the DNC leaker. So when John Podesta says, I'm all for making an example of the leaker, and then Seth Rich ends up murdered, ... It doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure out what may have happened there.
Right. And I mean, there would be motive, because it's somebody who's taking out information, and they would want to make an example of somebody doing that, because there's a lot of document. Why did Hillary get rid of all her emails? They're all the ones that we would love to see. So yeah, as far as the media and stuff running damage control for them, I think that's why, whether Q started this movement or helped start it, even though a lot of us were looking into things and some even working and covering this kind of stuff before Q showed up. That's the importance of why we do what we do every day. We have to be the solid movement that is covering all the news, picking things apart, even though sometimes I think some things might be picked apart too far and Occam's razor needs to be used. But it's something that means that we're going to turn over every rock. And that's a society that they can't thrive in. They as in the deep state. So that's why, arrests haven't happened yesterday or a year ago, and probably not happen tomorrow. I would like to be proven wrong when we wake up. But to have this movement doing what it does is so important to the future, beyond Trump. We need to be doing these things. And that's why I get up every day to do this stuff, because there's a role that needs to be played, because we can see how blatantly we're being lied to. The media absolutely is just bold-faced lying, has been, and the light's been on that for multiple years, and they're still getting some people in the world to believe it. So we have to consistently take apart narratives. If they put out a narrative about somebody, a Democrat saying something that's, obviously not true, we go find them saying the exact opposite a few years ago or a decade ago, and we say, all right, compare and make a decision for yourself. And that's what we all need to be doing, and that's why, places like SGT reporters are needed and will be needed for, as long as we're around.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And, the point I was trying to make, I guess I didn't flesh out that idea, but I inferred it, is the fact that the whore media covered up the whole Seth Rich thing, the fact that he was the DNC leaker. Robert Mueller never did show any interest to Kim.com's offer for testimony, never responded to Kim.com. The mainstream media ignored it and covered it up and continued to go with the phony narrative that it was Russians that hacked the DNC server. Meanwhile, Podesta said he's all for making an example of the leaker, and Seth Rich ended up dead. The whore media in this country is an absolute 100% apparatus of the deep state cabal.
Right, yeah, it's the PR, the PR for the deep state, and what they'll just be told what they need to cover, how they need to cover it, and they just run with it. I agree with you about Kim.com. It's just also been curious that he's came out recently against Trump and kind of lost a lot of people on his narrative. So that was all curious about him in general. But I do agree with you. If there's, hey, this Seth Rich is the guy, a guy's willing to go on record and say so, then you have the Podesta email. And the next thing you know, Seth Rich is dead. And, all his wallet and whatever watch or whatever was still on him, apparently, that is, intent and motive right there to be investigated. And let's just hope that that's what's been going on.
Yeah, well, absolutely. All right. Well, as we round out this conversation, I want to thank Methods for his time. I also want to leave everybody with this important photograph and tweet from Carry Activism over on Twitter. I think it paints a really important picture about this president. You guys know the deep state is aligned against him. The Mockingbird mainstream media is aligned against him. All of the Marxist, horrible Democrats that want to open the borders and seize your guns and make vaccines mandatory, they all hate this president. Carry Activism tweets, quote, "You never saw this on CNN. The president and first lady visited Nashville. He got his checkbook out and just started writing. That's my president," end quote. The quote is from Ed Wade, who presumably is the older man in this picture. So I tell you guys, that is definitely the polar opposite of what you would see out of somebody like Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris or any of the other Democrats. Methods, I want to thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for inviting me. Anytime, Sean. Keep doing your great work.
Thanks, brother. You too. And remind people how they can find you on Twitter and then the Comfy Sunday thing with Red Pill.
All right. Yeah. I'm over there on Twitter, on the digital battleground that Trump fights on. You can find me at M2, the Madness. over there. And then I also co-host a weekly show on Red Pill 78's YouTube channel, which if you aren't subscribed, you should be, and I'm sure most of you are. It's typically 7 p.m. Eastern, Sunday nights. We bring in guests. We just hang out and have casual conversations like what me and Sean have done today. So, yep, looking forward to the future, man.
All right. Amen. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You know how much we appreciate it. A shout out to our patrons for keeping us in the fight for truth and real news. And for real news 24/7, you guys can visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda and those mockingbird mainstream horror media lies. God bless, guys. Bye-bye.
You heard this being discussed in this meeting. They will release a flu-like virus that will be genetically targeted against the Chinese population. They said China will catch a cold.